Today, Daily Dose of Salt, I'm going to talk about what do we tolerate? What we tolerate, we teach other people to do. So think about this. Like what we tolerate in other people, let's just call it unacceptable behavior, at least unacceptable for us. What we tolerate other people doing, we teach them to do. We teach them it's okay. Like, it's okay. Like if I don't complain, if I don't say, hey, that doesn't work for me, hey, I need you to treat me differently, I need for you to be different. If we don't complain, if we don't take a stand, if we don't have boundaries for how people treat us, how people behave in our presence, we teach them it's okay. And I think this is one of the great silent conspiracies. I'm not talking about ridiculous conspiracies. I'm talking about one of the silent social conspiracies of our time, where all of us have sort of moved towards this. I don't know if it's political correctness or it's avoiding controversy or conflict, or that our self-esteem is eroded to the place where we're addicted to looking good and having everybody like us, that it seems like the population has just moved away from conflict towards likability. And I'm not like promoting conflict. I'm just, what I'm thinking about is when people behave around us in a way that doesn't work for us, that violates our values, that violates our freedoms, if we don't protest, if we don't tell people, hey, that doesn't work for me, and it might be language that they use, it might be lying, it might be gossiping, it might be, not keeping their promises, somebody says, I'm going to do something, and then they don't even do it. Or, Kimmy and I were talking this morning about, when people communicate with us, well, they expect us to respond right away. But some people you communicate with, you ask them a question, you send them a text or an email, and they don't even reply, right? And they saw it, but they don't even reply. But then when they want something, they, of course, expect you to reply right away. Or somebody says, I'm going to come and I'm going to call you tomorrow, or I'm going to set up a meeting, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And they just don't do it. They don't do it. And they also don't renegotiate the promise. You just don't ever hear from them. So whatever it is, whatever the behavior is, it might be gossip, it might be lying, it might be profanity, it might be racism, it might be bad humor, it might be, anything that violates your boundaries and your values. If you don't tell people that doesn't work for you, it's like you're endorsing their behavior, right? So the silence is interpreted as endorsement. And if you endorse people's bad behavior, guess what you teach them to do? To behave poorly, at least as it relates to you, your values, right? So, we all look to be treated how we want to be treated. And, different people may want to be treated differently. But if we don't tell people, hey, that doesn't work for me, that's unacceptable behavior. Well, then we create unacceptable behavior in our environment. And then think about the long-term consequences for us. Like, how do we suffer long-term in our own environment, in our own world, if we teach people around us, friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, social media people, if we don't protest, if we don't educate? The other day I had a couple of people that work for me here at the ranch that the two of them got in a little spat. They have totally kind of different jobs. But, they do cross over at times, and it's kind of a landscaping thing. And, one of them apparently offended the other one. And so the one who was offended, she decided that how she was going to handle it was she was going to out this person at the church. So when I found out about this thing, I said, okay, well, tell me what happened. And she said, well, don't worry about it. I'm handling it at the church. So well, what do you mean by that? She said, well, his bad behavior, I brought it up with the church, and the church will handle it. This is just a little 100-year-old local church here in town. And so I told her, I said, okay, well, you do whatever you want. And if you work for me, conflicts that happen on my property that are, have to do with my business, they don't get aired out at the church, right? The church doesn't solve my problems. You can do that if you want, but then you don't work for me anymore, right? Because I don't want what's going on my property to be handled by the church. I don't understand what that has to do with anything, but maybe it does for them. Okay, that's fine. They can do whatever they want, and I can do what I want. And what I want is I don't want my people that work for me airing conflicts that happen on my job site at the church. So you want to do that, that's okay, but you don't do it working for me. And of course, she wrote me like this full page email, blah, 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 blah. She didn't really hear me, but I felt in integrity telling her that doesn't work for me. And, whether it's racist comments or bad humor or profanity, I'm not saying those things don't work for me. I use profanity, but if I use profanity around the wrong people, like people that don't appreciate it, I appreciate them telling me, you know what, I don't appreciate that language. I appreciate understanding what the ground rules are to honor people. Because, like one of my old mentors told me, he said, we all need to be like an adjustable wrench, like a crescent wrench. If you want to be like, get along with people and have a clean, clear life, then we got to know what our own boundaries are, what our own values are, and we have to protect those by letting people know that behavior that's unacceptable to us doesn't work for us. And then we also have to find out, well, what kind of behavior works for other people, and honor them, right? Honor them with whatever that is. And so the point that I just wanted to make, just think about this. Whatever you and I tolerate, the definition of tolerance would be, we don't really agree with it. It doesn't really honor us, but we let it go. Now that's different than tolerating people that have other values than you, right? Like tolerating other beliefs and other values. That's an honorable trait, I believe, because we're all different, right? We were raised different. If you were raised in Russia or China or Argentina or Venezuela or London, you'd have a different perspective on life. You'd have different beliefs. You'd have different values. We're not born with values and beliefs. We learn all of those based on our environment. And most of our environment is our parents and our community. And so we're all different, right? Just like 7.5 billion people all over the world, we're all different. But if you want to, I believe, if you want to live a life of integrity, if you want to empower yourself, you got to protect your environment by letting people know that intrude on your environment how you want to be treated. And then at the same time, the people that you are in relationship with, that you're working with, you got to find out from them, right? What works for you? How do you want to be treated? How do you want to be communicated with? And then, like an old mentor of mine said, you got to be like an adjustable wrench to fit every nut you run into. I don't mean that people are nuts, but people are different, right? And so, the message of the day: if you don't like certain behavior and you do not protest against it, then you are endorsing it. You are teaching people to treat you poorly if you stay silent. Silence is the conspiracy. Consider that. In Daily Dose of Salt. I'll see you tomorrow.